Welcome to CBS Sports HQ Spotlight. I'm Jenny Dell. We got Chris Hassel, Lige Douzable, and Danny Kanell on set with us right now, kicking off this Thursday afternoon. And we love a good countdown at HQ.
We do. A couple of round numbers here. 100 days to week one, the first Saturday, week one of the college football season.
Oh, yeah.
And 15 weeks until the NFL opener. We are going to ask you guys several questions as it pertains to the NFL. One of the big questions with 15 weeks to go is, will the Cowboys ever get a deal done with Dak? These guys actually disagree on it. This is what Dak had to say when asked.
I don't play for money. Never have, never cared for it, to be honest with you. Would give it up just to play this game. So so I allow that to the business people to say what it's worth, what they're supposed to give a quarterback of my play, a person of my play, leader of my play, I guess you can say. And for me, it's about, as I said, control. I can control and handle that part, and the rest will take care of itself.
Well, I mean, if he doesn't care, how about $1 million? You know, $1 million a year. It's questionable Thursday here on HQ Spotlight. We're going to ask our guys the biggest questions remaining with 15 weeks to go. And we're going to start right there because you guys disagree on this. Will Dak Prescott and the Cowboys get a new deal done before the season?
I'm going to say no, DK. And if you heard what Jerry Jones has been saying this whole offseason, going back to the Senior Bowl or Combine, he was telling everybody, we're going to go as far as Dak Prescott takes us. And that's exactly how far we went. And then, DK, you look at another scenario, right? Most quarterbacks in the last year of their deal, they get a new deal done. But instead for Dak, they restructured just to lower his cap number down from $60 to $55 million. I think this is a scenario where the head coach and the quarterback are tied together. Not only is this the last year for Dak Prescott's deal, it's the last year for Mike McCarthy. And most coaches like to have that insurance going into their last year. They usually get an extension, especially a coach that's won 36 games in the last 3 years. To me, this is a scenario where Jerry Jones sits back and looks at this 2024 season where the head coach and the quarterback are tied together. Then he'll make his decision from there. I don't believe Dak Prescott gets paid before the season starts.
Jerry said he's our quarterback, he's our guy. I think he'll take care of him. Jerry is loyal to a fault to his guys, and I think he will take care of them. I think this is probably a negotiation that's taking place that'll get done sometime in training camp where it'll be a fair number. Dak Prescott is unequivocally a franchise quarterback, and if you have one, you have to pay him. And if you don't, you could be stuck for the next 5-10 years searching for another one. And if you look ahead towards next season's draft or even the free agent market, there's not a lot of great options out there. So I think the Cowboys are a little bit stuck with Dak Prescott, whether they like it or not. And in order to make sure they secure him for a little bit longer term, I think they'll get it done. I think they'll get a deal done.
Before we move on, Lige, can you just make the face that you made when you heard Dak say, I don't care about the money? Because that's just ingrained in
Danny
my mind.
made the same face.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
I just saw all Lige. Both of you were
This
just
was
like,
the face.
come on now.
My thing is, in the words of the great Heath Ledger, who played an iconic role in The Dark Knight Rises, or The Dark Knight when he was a Joker, if you do anything well, never do it for free. All right, Dak Prescott. So, again, no player, even if you love something, wants to do it for cheap or beyond what they think they should get paid. And he even stated that, DK, because he was like somebody that plays up to what I play or my leadership. Like, why bring up those points if you truly don't care about what you're getting
You know
paid?
what, though? If you gave a class, like a PR 101 on how to handle a question, I thought that's exacly how you handle
He's been doing it his whole
Exactly.
career.
That's why the Cowboys fan base loves him, because they're like, oh, that's my guy. He'd play for free. But I think former players out there are like, all right, yeah, sure you would. But it's the right thing to say, and I think that's why you can appreciate him, because he does stand for the right things, and I think he's a great leader for that franchise, a great face of the franchise. He's going to say the right things most of the time.
So as a reminder, we're looking at the biggest questions of the offseason, one of the biggest hires of the offseason, the Chargers and Jim Harbaugh. The question is, will the Chargers be tougher with Harbaugh at the helm? Danny, what do you think?
Physically, mentally,
For sure.
Unequivocally, yes. Everywhere Jim Harbaugh has been, he's created winners, and he's created a team that had a very physical identity, even going back to the San Francisco 49ers team that he brought to the Super Bowl. So much to the point that I think it sometimes can be a challenge to get players, NFL players, to buy into that physicality in the offseason, in training camp. But when you start to see the effectiveness with which it works, that's when all of a sudden it becomes a lot more fun. Even though he's got Justin Herbert, who can throw it and can throw it all over the yard, I think they're going to have a run-based physical style, and then it sort of permeates both sides of the football mentality. So I think he's absolutely going to have a physical, hard-nosed team. Think Dan Campbell. Kind of, I mean, I was going to say without the sound bites. He's going to give you the sound bites as well. So this is a version of maybe Dan Campbell West Coast, although Harbaugh's been around longer than Dan Campbell, so maybe that's where Campbell got it from. But yes, he's going to have a very physical, hard-nosed team, whether they like it or not. And if they're not, they won't be around.
Yeah, history shows you he's going to bring a different physical attitude to this team. See it right there on the graphic. When he was the head coach of the 49ers and them running the football, plus 3,000 yards, which was first in the NFL in his tenure. Adversely, as when Justin Herbert became the quarterback, minus almost 1,900 yards. So you're going to see a philosophy change. And not only does history show that, and we can even go back to Michigan with that offensive line, winning the Joe Moore Award 2 years in a row for outstanding offensive line play. Look at what he did in the draft. Everybody was like, you need a playmaker for Justin Herbert. He's like, forget it. We need an offensive lineman to run the football. And that's exactly what they did. They already have Rashawn Slater, one of the best young tackles in football. They pair him with Joe Alt. And then they went and got Gus Edwards, right, from the Baltimore Ravens. 6'1", 240 pounds. They're going to come with attitude. They're going to come with physicality, and they're going to run the football.
And he already, before the draft, he was giving that soliloquy about offensive line play, and it's the tip of the spear and how it's the most important position on the team. He absolutely is going to ingrain that mindset into this team.
Only needed one-word answer. Okay, they're going to be tougher, but will they also be better? Danny?
Yes, I think they'll be better because I think the physicality brings confidence, and it's a physical game. So I think they're going to be better.
That was like 25.
Yes, they'll be better.
Yes, okay.
Yes.
Right.
Great.
They will be tougher. They will be better. I've been looking over the confirmed games that CBS has this upcoming season, and one of the sexiest ones is Bills Texans. Stephon Diggs of the Texans now facing his former team. Is he going to return to form? And because you look at some of the numbers last season, in the latter half, he really tailed off at Buffalo.
I think he will, DK. And when you look at it, and you talked about his numbers tailing off, there was also a philosophy change.
Sure.
And you see it right there. Joe Brady took over as offensive coordinator, right? And they made Cook the main focal point of the offense because Josh Allen was turning the football over. So instead of putting it at risk, he ran the ball more and got James Cook involved in the passing game. So when you look at this, Bobby Slowick, the offensive coordinator for the Houston Texans, where did he come from? The 49ers. He saw Kyle Shanahan with that bevy of offensive weapons be able to make sure that everybody eats. And that was the question mark for Stephon Diggs. Like, would he return to prominence because you have Tank Dell, because you have Nico Collins, you re-signed Dalton Schultz. And I say if there's any offensive coordinator that has seen it done before, it's Bobby Slowick. So, yes, I believe Stephon Diggs will return to prominence. Now, again, will he go for 1,500 yards? I don't believe that. But I think he'll get around 1,200, maybe even 1,300 yards because there is so many mouths to feed with the Houston Texans.
You know, we said return to form. I was wondering if we're talking about is he going to return to yelling at his quarterback and being disgruntled and not showing up for OTAs in the offseason and being upset. I'll leave that aside because I do think he's been looking for a change of scenery. And now he's got it. And now he's got one of the most talented young quarterbacks in C.J. Stroud. He's got supporting talent around him. I still think he's got years left in the tank. So, yes, I think he'll be one of the top receivers in the NFL and be able to return to that form. If he doesn't, that to me is where it does get interesting because then do you have issues creep in and could it disrupt a very young locker room from the head coach, who's one of the younger head coaches, to both the defensive side of the ball with Will Anderson Jr. and C.J. Stroud, the leaders of that team? Does it impact it negatively if they face adversity? He hasn't thrived in that scenario. Maybe they get off on the right foot. You don't have to worry about it. But if they do, it's a story to keep an eye on.
I think something to also keep an eye on when you look at the trade to the Houston Texans, they restructured his deal where he's essentially a free agent after this. So you're talking about a guy that's going to be highly motivated to make things work. I think we're going to see the Stephon Diggs that we're accustomed to seeing when he was in Buffalo.
We're going to look at some rookie quarterbacks right now. There was a strong QB class coming into this draft, and we saw such growth when it comes to Jayden Daniels from one year to the next. Now with the Commanders, just such high expectations there and a lot of comparisons when it comes to Daniels. Do you guys think Jayden Daniels will be Kyler 2.0?
And is that a good thing?
Well, I think he's going to be actually better. And when you look at the two quarterbacks coming out of college, to me, Jayden Daniels, from a fundamental standpoint, was light years ahead of Kyler Murray. And then you saw what Kyler Murray did his rookie year, right? Over 3,700 yards, 20 touchdowns, only 12 interceptions, and won Offensive Rookie of the Year. Look at Jayden Daniels, it's a similar scenario, right? Because Cliff Kingsbury was the head coach in Arizona. Now he's Jayden Daniels, offensive coordinator with the Commanders. And you look at some of the playmakers that Kyler Murray had. He had an older Larry Fitzgerald, a young Christian Kirk. Well, Jayden Daniels has scary Terry McLaurin, who's been a perennial Pro Bowler, and a young and up-and-coming Jahan Dotson. So when you look at it also, Jayden Daniels coming from LSU, similar offense that Cliff Kingsbury used to running with that 3 receiver set. So I think Jayden Daniels is going to have a lot of success. Kyler Murray had over 500 yards rushing. I would not be surprised if Jayden eclipses that and goes 600 or 700 yards rushing.
Should we take baby steps, though, and be like, can he be Lamar Jackson 0.5? Like half of Lamar Jackson early, the 2-time MVP.
So rookie Lamar or second-year Lamar?
Right. Maybe this past season Lamar, like half of what he accomplished.
MVP. I would say half of the MVP.
Right. But you're half of that. Yeah. So, like, you're still having a good season. Yeah. I think what'll be interesting, because I get the similarities. I get why we have this question. You brought a lot of them up, the similar play.
And Kyler did have a pretty good rookie season.
Yeah, he had a great
thought differently about him then than we did going into last year.
And I think Jayden Daniels has a better supporting cast around him than you had with Kyler Murray his rookie season. I think the challenge is going to be 2 things. One, staying healthy, because he's got to learn. Anytime you have a running quarterback, you have to protect your body. It is different. I know he played in the SEC, but you have to protect your body every time you get a chance. And the other one is turnovers. We saw Bryce Young struggle with that last year. We saw Trevor Lawrence struggle with that before as the #1 overall pick. There's a temptation to try to make a play every single time. As long as he can kind of minimize those mistakes and learn from them quickly so you don't repeat them throughout your rookie season, he absolutely can be a Kyler Murray 2.0 version. But it's like stature, style of play, he's much closer to Lamar Jackson.
Correct.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Lamar Jackson 0.5.
Yes.
That's what you're 0.5 for the Commanders. Drafted right ahead of Jayden Daniels is Caleb Williams. And the question is not best supporting cast ever, but for #1 overall picks, is this the best supporting cast a #1 pick has ever had?
Yeah, I was going to say when we saw this question, I was going to say Brock Purdy might have had the best ever any rookie had when he took over the helm for the 49ers. I think it's in the running. It has to, because normally you are given a situation where you're having a team that's 2-14 or 2-15, and that's usually in a complete rebuild mode. Because this was acquired through the trade with Carolina, you've got outstanding weapons around you. You've got a couple of outstanding veteran wide receivers in DJ Moore, Keenan Allen. I think you and I both love Rome Odunze as a rookie who doesn't have to shoulder all the load. Yep. He's a luxury item in this offense. Literally. So I think a lot of it comes down to coaching for Caleb Williams. Shane Waldron, the new offensive coordinator, has had a lot of success as an offensive coordinator, but this organization has not been great with quarterbacks, especially the head coach who's been cycling through offensive coordinators. That, to me, is probably going to be the more significant issue. But as far as pieces in place, Caleb Williams is set up to succeed. That's why I think this team makes the playoffs in his rookie year.
To me, undoubtedly, this is the best supporting cast a #1 player has ever had. To your point, usually when you're picking #1, it's because you were at the bottom of the barrel in the NFL. You're 2-15 or such. But because of the trade to Carolina, like DK said, they won 7 games last year. This was a team that competed throughout. And if you look at the supporting cast, like he said, he's going to have every weapon available. I'm so glad you brought up Shane Waldron, because I've had this discussion with many people. There's a lot of onus on him, right? Because Caleb Williams is used to playing hero-type football because he had no help from his defense at USC. Well, this is adversely different. This Chicago's Bear defense, the last 6 weeks of the season, was #1 in points per game, #1 in interception, #1 in touchdowns given up via the rush, and they were #1 against the rush the whole entire season. So he's got a defense he can actually lean on. So it'll be on Shane Waldron to let him know, like, we're here to uplift you. You don't need to go out there and do everything else. I'm going to make sure everybody gets their touches, but you don't have to go be Superman. Just live within the offense, and we'll have success.
You were concerned I was looking back there, weren't you, Jim?
You were. I was wondering what was behind us.
So I was looking to see if he had fingernail polish on, but I don't think he did on that.
It looks like on the pinky, right?
Maybe a little silver or gray on the pinky, that's all. We're going to continue to ask big off-season questions here, 15 weeks until opening Thursday in the NFL. Up next, asking some questions of the top teams in the league, like, is Derrick Henry the missing piece for Lamar and the Ravens, or will Mahomes and company be too explosive?
Back here on Spotlight, well, in the break, we were talking about losing some weight, dropping some pounds. That's what Lamar Jackson did this
You were
offseason.
trying to sell us on Ozempic. What was that about?
I am not. All right. Derrick Henry is now with the Ravens. Lamar Jackson lost some weight, and this team is looking dangerous.
Big Z play?
Ooh, I just get the ball in. Go, big guy, go. You know, I'm cheering like the fans. That's all.
What's it like seeing him on your side of the line? I mean, obviously, you guys have gone back and forth for so many years against Derrick. What's it like kind of having him in the backfield as a resource for you?
Well, I never had to go against Derrick ever, so that's a plus for me. But it's great to have him in our backfield, man. Got a great line to block for him, and we know what type of player he is. You know, we know what type of defense we have, know what type of skill players we have here. Man, I feel like we getting there.
Lijay and Danny back with us. We're talking about the biggest questions of the offseason. And, of course, a question surrounds the Ravens now that they have Derrick Henry in that backfield, that 2-year, $16 million deal there. You heard that Lamar Jackson's obviously happy about that. Would you say that he is a missing piece for the Ravens? Lijay, we'll start with you.
No. I mean, the Ravens led the NFL in rush yards last year. Now, I mean, will it change the perspective of the offensive coordinator to run the ball in the AFC Championship game? Maybe, but no. Like, the Ravens, they're synonymous with running the football, DK, whether it's Gus Edwards or J.K. Dobbins. Yes, having King Henry may open up a little bit more holes because you have Lamar Jackson in the backfield, but I don't think that's the missing piece for them. Honestly, last year I feel like was a team where they had the best team in the NFL and they still couldn't get over the hump in beating the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm more concerned about not their running backs, but them losing 3 of their 5 starters on offensive line, losing a Pro Bowl linebacker, and losing Mike McDonald as a defensive coordinator. I don't think that's been talked about enough with this team. So to me, Derrick Henry isn't the missing piece because the Ravens run the football anyway, no matter who's in the backfield.
Also, I mean, I think there should be question marks about Derrick Henry, how much he has left in the tank. We know that kind of numbers when you start getting 30 and pushing 30 for a running back, the numbers start to go downhill. You are 100% right. The question is, he's the missing piece if they decide to use him in that game against the Chiefs in that AFC Championship game, or whenever they have to face them, and they hopefully do in the AFC Championship game or sometime in the playoffs. This, to me, was a luxury item for the Ravens, where it's like an addition. I think Lamar Jackson is the answer for any team. And I think they've found him. You're just trying to put him in positions to succeed and give him weapons to work with, which I do think makes that offense really interesting, because I think it'll make life a whole lot easier on Derrick Henry, who's been facing 8 and 9-man boxes with a bevy of different quarterbacks who weren't that great. Now he's got a 2-time MVP. The holes are going to open for him, so it'll make his life easier. And then it'll also, conversely, for Lamar Jackson, they're going to have to respect Derrick Henry, so it might even make him more dangerous as a runner. So I think it's a luxury item more than it's the missing piece.
And it's the defense that would have to go up against Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, who showed last year they could win it without going over the top. He could just spread things around, didn't really have a deep threat. Well, now he's got Hollywood Brown. Now he's got Xavier Worthy, the fastest guy in the draft. And he says that Andy Reid is saying, hey, we got to go over the top more. We are built to go deep. So what's that going to look like this year?
I think he'll return to what he was when Tyreek Hill was there. Now, I don't know if those numbers will be comparable, right? Because the one thing about the Chiefs they've done a great job of reinventing themselves every year. You talked about it. When Tyreek Hill was there, they were throwing the ball down the field. Then when Tyreek Hill left, it was kind of dink and dunk, get the ball to Travis Kelce underneath, run the ball with Isaiah Pacheco, really lean on that top 5 defense. So I think they'll be better this year because the last 2 years, their speed element has been MVS. He's no longer there. I think with Hollywood Brown being a little bit more consistent of a receiver, and then you talked about Xavier Worthy with his speed, he's going to make sure that middle field safety stays deep. I think it'll still open things up underneath. I'm not sure. I don't buy into Andy Reid saying we got to be throwing the ball down the field. I really like how the Chiefs have reinvented themselves, been able to run the ball, throw the ball underneath, and that way Patrick Mahomes isn't taking as many chances, potentially throwing interceptions.
You know, I thought one of the more impressive things last year was that Patrick Mahomes didn't try to force the deep ball, because defenses, they're tired of giving up those big plays, and they're aware of all this speed that's coming there, and they still don't want to give it up. Yeah. They want to force Patrick Mahomes to be patient and see if he'll make a mistake. Now, he has turned the ball over at times because he was a little bit careless with it, but if you can make him be patient, that's what he doesn't want to do, except I thought he showed a lot of maturity this past season, taking that step of growth. So I think the deep ball, I love that Andy Reid is not hiding it. He's like, no, we want to get back, because everyone in the NFL wants chunk yardage. That's what they want, the big plays. Yeah. Because what happens on long, 11, 12 play drives, 13 play drives, penalties. You start a running back coughs it up. You have a turnover. They want the easier chunk plays, so they're going to try to get back to that. But they're not going to force it if it's not there. But at least they have the threat of it now, where, again, if those teams want to, they're going to have to really play back for Xavier Worthy, then guess who it opens up? Travis Kelce across the middle, all the other pieces of the puzzle coming across the middle. So they're still going to be dangerous. I don't know if they ever go back to that Tyreek Hill offense exactly, but they'll have that deep threat, which will keep defenses honest for sure.
I want to ask you guys about the Falcons next. Getting the most lucrative free agency deal to Kirk Cousins this offseason. Now, of course, Cousins coming off of that Achilles injury. So the question being, can he turn around things, as Brad Nessler would say, for the Falcones? What do you think, Lijay?
I think he can turn things around. I think the biggest issue with the Atlanta Falcons at the quarterback position, and Raheem Morris even said this, if there was better quarterback play, I probably wouldn't be here, was the turnovers, right? Desmond Ridder had 19 turnovers alone by himself last year, and there were games where it was one-score games where he would turn the ball over and the Atlanta Falcons would lose. Well, Kirk Cousins is one of the best quarterbacks in taking care of the football, and one thing he does on a routinely basis, DK, is throw for 4,000 yards. When you look at the Atlanta Falcons offense the last 2 years, right, they've been second to the last in the league in pass play percentages. Well, Kirk Cousins was number one with Minnesota the last 2 years. And to me, he was playing MVP-type football the first 8 weeks of the season, led the NFL in touchdown passes the first 8 weeks of the season, and was playing at an all-pro level. So I think he will turn things around. And also, with offensive coordinator Zach Robinson, you might see a philosophy change where this team their bread and butter was the run game. I think it'll be a little bit more 50-50 with Kirk Cousins. But the biggest thing was the turnovers that Desmond Ridder had that Kirk Cousins won't have.
Yeah, the play action pass to Bijan Robinson I think is going to be huge, especially on first down. That's such a dangerous down where you can, if you trust your quarterback not to turn it over, not to force the deep ball, to take a check down when it's there. That's one of Kirk Cousins' specialties. You know, the big concern, I think, would be obviously at his age coming back from an Achilles injury. But if it's not like you're asking Lamar Jackson to return to form or Josh Allen or somebody who runs the ball a lot. He is a dinosaur in today's game because he is a pure pocket passer. I don't think you have to have him be, a return to the 25-year-old version of Kirk Cousins. He just has to be healthy enough to stay upright in the pocket. I think he will be. He's going to make good decisions. I do think he succeeds, and I think this team wins the division.
How about somebody who's older and was even more injured last season? That would be Aaron Rodgers, who only took 4 snaps for the Jets before the injury. I don't know if he would have held up anyway because the offensive line had 13 different combinations, 13 different starters. They were bottom 5 in the league in a bunch of different categories. But, Lijay, you know this team well.
Yeah.
3 new starters on the offensive line this season. So is that going to be enough to keep Rodgers healthy and effective?
Well, it's always interesting, and you made some great points, Has, about the 13 different starting combos, 13 starting offensive linemen. And I saw a stat that said Aaron Rodgers, when he's not pressured, completes over 70% of his passes. When he is pressured, around 48%. DK, you played quarterback for a long time. What stat isn't like that for a quarterback that is pressured versus when he's not pressured?
Right.
Like when you're upright, you're going to complete passes. When you're not going to complete passes. So when it comes to this offensive line, the thing about it, offensive line play, it's about consistency and continuity. And you stated it. The Jets had none of that last year. 13 different combos again. 13 different offensive linemen started. DK, you know this. The offensive line is like a string. And when you cut one string, when somebody gets hurt, you have to tie a knot. There's going to be a lump in the offensive line when that happens. Now you would think bringing in a couple new starters, right? Hopefully Elijah Vera-Tucker can stay healthy. But you bring in 2 prominent tackles, a guy like Morgan Moses who's been in the building and knows how the Jets work, Tyron Smith who's been a perennial Pro Bowler who has had issues staying healthy. If they can stay healthy, I think Aaron Rodgers' play we'll see an uptick in it. But again, when you're a quarterback and you're pressured, of course you're not going to complete as much as you would when you're not pressured. But I think this new offensive line look for the Jets will help Aaron Rodgers.
I think the offensive line last year got so much criticism, but you know what doesn't help an average offensive line or a mediocre offensive line?
Zach Wilson.
Exactly. No, I'm serious. Like, you have to know where to get rid of the football.
Correct.
Aaron Rodgers will help this revamped offensive line because he'll know where to get rid of the football. He won't be afraid to throw it away. He'll get them in better protection. He'll check out of plays they're not supposed to be in. So I am not that concerned about this offensive line.
The interesting thing is the play he got hurt, he didn't throw the ball in timing. So, like, he even came out and said it himself. He said, I should have got rid of that ball to Garrett Wilson. I didn't.
Lijay Douzable, Danny Kanell answering some questions on Questionable Thursday. I like the title of that one. Thanks, fellas.